Good morning, and you are listening to Soul Talk on Saturday mornings. Thank you for tuning in. And our guest today is Rashmi Kilnani. And this is a recorded show that we did on 12/11/2012 to be broadcast at a later time. And tomorrow, the energy will be for 12/12/2012. And we're definitely going through a lot of shifts. And so I'm excited about having Rashmi on the line, and we're going to be talking about awakening of consciousness in 12/21/2012, and what to be looking forward to in 2012, and some things that we can do to stay in balance with our lives. So thank you guys for listening as usual, and have a very blessed day. Good morning, everybody, and we have Rashmi on the line calling in from London, England. Good morning, Rashmi. How are you?
Hi, Jeremy. Fantastic to be on your show again. It's 1 o'clock in the morning in London and 8 p.m. in Florida, is it?
It's 8 p.m. in Florida. Yes, it is. So we generally, when I talk to you, I think the first time you were in Los Angeles, and the second time you were in Charlottesville. So usually you're in the United States. So, but this is a very cool call, especially with the energy. You and I have been talking about energy and the awakening of consciousness. 12/21 of 2012, and so I think that's kind of what we wanted to gear towards. But I guess there's a congratulations in order too, because you have had a huge accomplishment recently. You sold out the first run of The Buddha Speaks, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's my second book, The Buddha Speaks, to the Buddha Nature Within, and it was, as you know, it just came out a few months ago. So that's terribly exciting that we've had to do a reprint so quickly. And I'm really glad that it's helping people across the globe and so well received. And the Divine Mother Speaks, the healing of the human heart, is also reaching people all across the world. So it's especially because both the books, like your book, I've noticed, congratulations, are on Kindle, and I think that makes it so much easier for everybody, especially in the States.
Absolutely, and I didn't even think Kindle was that big of a thing until we posted on Kindle and it started selling really fast. So I was like, wow, I guess people want everything on Kindle nowadays. So.
Well, yeah, especially in America they do that, and so on. The Divine Mother Speaks is doing really well on Kindle. It's always within the first 20 books in the Goddess section on most days, but it's just like $3 now. It's been really reduced down in price, so it makes it so affordable for everybody as well.
Absolutely. So the last time you and I really seriously talked or did an interview, I actually spent time with you, and yes. It was in Charlottesville, Virginia, while I was on tour. What's been going on since then? I know we want to get into awakening consciousness, but the listeners that enjoy hearing Rashmi on Soul Talk, what's going on with Rashmi?
Well, as you know, it was just a few months ago that we met in Charlottesville, and the energy has just been building and building since. Yeah. So we had a very successful launch of Buddha Speaks, and as you know, Jeremy, I do quite a lot of morphogenic healing work for the planet, and particularly for the States in the last 4 or 5 years. But recently I've been guided by my higher self and the Ascended Masters to work in Europe as well, and especially out of London, which in a way, as you know, is a symbol of the center of the planet and the global village of the planet. And there's so much busyness here, and people from all over the world are here, and the banking systems and so on. So to hold the energy of meditation and stillness in the heart of London, so that's a challenge and a wonderful work at the same time. Absolutely. So that's where I'm at the moment. And I'm also soon going to be working on the final completion. I mean, the book is complete, but the third book, Shiva Speaks, Mahavatar Babaji Conversations with Him, which will be out on Kindle in March 2013. So I think the proofreadings begin in January, so I'm going to have to get my roller skates on for that and find a space to write the fourth book as well, which is going to be the story of my family, my mother and partition, myself, and it's called Punjabi Mother Intergalactic Daughter.
Oh wow, very very cool. So you got another you're about where I'm at. I'm writing the second one, and I'm doing research for the third one. because my higher self is like, read this book, or go here, and it's just kind of leading me along the way. And I think that's about what evolving consciousness is all about. We just kind of follow the there's kind of like a guidance. I call them breadcrumbs, through the maze.
Yeah.
It's taking us each step of the way, and that I think is kind of the cool part. But I think that's one of the hardest things for people to do, is to just let go and just follow that guidance.
Absolutely, but what we find is, as we begin to surrender, I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I really feel at the moment the energy is so much about just, like your book so beautifully has on its title, being still and just practicing this energy of just being rather than a human doing. And that's very, very hard, even for people like yourself and myself that are practicing this all the time and live it and believe in it. Even for us, it can be a challenge from time to time, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, but I think that's a part of it too, is that when we have trouble getting still, that's our opportunity to get even stronger, and and get even better at it, more, I guess refined would be the word that I'm looking for. So I mean, and that just happened to be recently. I'd come off of tour, and which was very exciting, and sold a lot of books, and we were going through a lot, with that, and then I got back, and it is almost like where I was coming back to it. It was still home to me, but it was, I went through I wrestled with my beast for about a week during Thanksgiving, which really ended up being grieving, because that was the last time my mother was healthy. So I went through my ego, and I think that I don't know how you feel about it. I think sometimes that is healthy to have that.
Of course, the shadow has to come up, and we are still riding between 3D and the fifth dimension. So within 3D, as we're releasing that energy, the shadow will keep coming, particularly as we become more and more of the light. So your tour was all about, service to mankind and helping people and facilitating your own journey through travel, expansion, and coming out of your comfort zone. So obviously, the shadow self, pops up from time to time for us to embrace. And you very courageously go through that process, which none of us need to judge that process, because it's just something that's within us coming up for embracement into the light of us.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what is a part of this awakening, is that we've suppressed that side and not really paid attention to it, or beaten it up, or made it feel bad, or punished it. And now when we can love it and understand it, that's part of what your first book is about, healing the human heart, is loving it and opening that up, and and having compassion for yourself, but also for others. So
that's right. And as we know, Jeremy, it's so important to begin with ourselves. Like you feel sadness around your mother's passing over. Of course, on a higher level, you understand that there is no such thing as death, and that your mother is very with you, and that it's just a change. But on a human level, it's just so important to feel those feelings, and to be human and not to judge feelings. At night, I get up every night, and there's some sort of fear stuff going around my solar plexus, and when I look at whatever the dream was or whatever, it's comical, but that energy is there, and so and sometimes I don't even know whether this is the morphogenic resonance of the fear that's swimming in London and the globe, or whether it's some of my own stuff still coming up from past lives or this life. But it doesn't really matter, and we don't have to analyze it too much. As you say, this embracement is so important. The allowance, the saying, okay, come to me, like a frightened child, bringing it into the light of our heart, into the light of our awareness, because all it wants is some love, and it's just a part of us that's been suppressed, repressed, or judged.
Absolutely. It's once I actually went through, and I don't know if you've done this, and once you get through it and you realize it and you've loved it, you get this really amazing sense of love, and I call it even a sense of self-accomplishment, because you just got through, became more self-aware, became more in balance and more in alignment with yourself and God, whatever you want to refer to it as, is your higher being or whatever, and you get to understand what life is about, and that's experiencing. And I think a lot of times we just kind of brush it under the rug and don't experience. And
that's so beautifully expressed, Jeremy. One of the big problems we've noticed, both of us, is that a lot of the teachers out there, or guides, or call them healers, they tend to ignore this part, this dark part, the shadow, the parts that are judged as good and bad, even within the so-called New Age community or spiritual communities, even that consider themselves to be very laissez-faire and open-minded, open-hearted, and so that is just absolutely crucial. And as you say, like this morning when I brought in all the angels and I really went very, very deep into this. It goes back to Atlantis when Atlantis sank and all the pain of humanity, and that's in our DNA of many, many lifetimes, and the fear and so on. And as that, for a while it just felt like the color was not changing, it was still sort of gray. But then the shift, when you come into the light part and you embrace that, because it makes you feel so much lighter, doesn't it? It's like this burden you're carrying around, pretending there's no pink elephant under the carpet,
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought up Atlantis, because I actually and I wanted to see how you feel about this. When I went to my Atlantis life, because I got pulled back there in a meditation, and I saw that as a shadow life, like, as the only words I can use to express it. I'm not going to say evil or bad, but it was a shadow life where I was operating from a very limited, not a limited. I understood energy, but I was operating from an angry place, or
right.
a dark place.
Right.
And so now I felt like that I came back in this life to balance that out soul-wise.
Absolutely, that's absolutely correct. I'm seeing it as you say it.
Yeah.
That is not an imagination. That is exactly correct.
And I think that's what a lot of us have come back to do.
Yes.
Some would speculate that there was fallen angels in Atlantis, or whatever, or fallen ascended beings that fell for whatever reason, and now they've come back to elevate the planet. And so.
Well, there was a lot of misuse of power towards the very end, and not everybody was involved in that. But a few souls went on in a spaceship that survived, that went on to Egypt, and then when the Egyptian golden ages of high energy with Sirius and so on came to an end, then those a few beings, again pure beings, continued the energy and the essence of the mystery school teachings, and became known as the Essenes. And as we know, Jesus was an Essene. So that's how the energy was carried forward. And of course, before Atlantis, we had Lemuria. But at the moment, as we know, we're coming back to that time in the ecliptic.
Yeah.
So after 13,000 years, we are, so it's time, this time again, we could either sink or float. And in fact, we were much more advanced than we are even now in terms of our technology, etc. then. Yeah. But of course, the plan is that this time around, we are going to hopefully ascend as a species. And this is the first time that a whole planet is, the experiment is that the whole planet ascends. And that has not happened before like this anywhere in the manifest universe. So it's a very, very exciting time to be alive.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. And, as we know, well, tomorrow is 12/12/12, which I didn't even think about until this morning. I was like, that's significant. That's a significant energy. You can feel the energy without even knowing. And
well, that's why we're doing the show now. This is why we are connecting across the pond, the Atlantic Ocean, to do this show. I think it's beautiful, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I've felt connected to you since the first time we talked, and more so when I met you. And here we are coming together the day before this, and then just before December 21st. And I think that a lot of people are going to be seeing a lot of shifts in their consciousness. I mean, I've actually had friends having very deep dreams. Some of flying. A lot of their, even their nightmares are coming up, and they call me, and I say, just your nightmares are a manifestation of what's going on in your psyche, and if it's a nightmare, then that is probably your shadow, and get into it and look at it, love it. It's the fear that's within you.
Just love it.
Yeah, just
love it.
Love it and go with it.
We don't even have to go into too much analysis of which lifetime and what anymore, because there's too much information overload.
Absolutely.
We just need to be in the now moment and embrace anything that is not of love, that is not of the light.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we as I said, it can be morphogenic fear that we are also processing, but and the dream state is a powerful tool, as you know, Jeremy, for us to heal many, many aspects of our being that would be more difficult in our daytime awareness, and that's why a lot of us are waking up after 3 or 4 hours, because we need a break from all the processing in our sleep.
Yeah.
But how can we help our listeners right now? Is there any facilitation we can do on questions? Or, I hope that there's not too much fear kicking around about this is the end of the world and so on, because there's so much information out there on the internet, thanks to to what's called Lilu Mace. And she's putting all the fantastic YouTube shows on Drunvalo, Melchizedek, and Dr. Kalaman, who's done so much research on the Mayan calendar and what the Hopis and Mayans, etc., are saying. So, what do you feel? Do you feel people are still very scared?
I think, actually, I think some people are scared, but I think what I've really been feeling a lot more is complacency from a strong group of people, especially, interestingly enough, in the metaphysical community. I don't know if that makes any sense. I found that people have been bombarded with the subject so much that it's almost like they're kind of brushing it off. And I don't know if it's an event that we just wait for, but I think we needed to be doing the work a long time beforehand, and that's just the work on loving ourselves, understanding ourselves, and living in the now of the moment. And I think the ones that did that, well, I know the ones that did that are starting to feel the benefits of it. They're feeling the energy surging through them. They're feeling the love come through them. I do think that there are certain groups of people, and I've even spoken to them recently, because I've been seeing people get really angry about things lately and defending their religion a lot. And I mentioned to somebody that they were the creator of their own world, and they got up and they said, "Don't you believe that Jesus is your savior?" And they got upset, and I said, I believe that Jesus taught me the footsteps to finding inner peace, and that was my response. And they didn't appreciate that too much, but I also love them and understand that that's where they're at, and that's their truth, and I can only speak my truth and love them for who they are, and love myself for who I am.
Well, that's interesting that you share that with me, because I was just wondering, we are making this film called I, God with Deepak Chopra and quantum physicist, myself, Neil Donald Walsh, many different aspects of the divine, experts speaking about God. And I was just wondering whether it would have any relevance in 2013, because it hasn't been completed yet. And but obviously it will have a relevance, because it's not like suddenly everybody's going to, get it. Though I hope that I'm wrong and everybody does get it suddenly.
I've been feeling
because tomorrow is 12, so.
Absolutely, but when you think about it, there's probably going to be a 5-year transition, from 2012 to 2017, at least, and even
maybe
beyond
20 years.
Because if you look at even in astrology, there's a cusp period.
Yes, yes.
And then beyond that, even it's going to grow into it, because we didn't, 2,000 years ago, when there was another age shift. Of course, we're not coming to the end of the Mayan calendar, and this is a huge, significant one. It transitioned into that age. It didn't.
Absolutely. So 2012 had already begun. It began quite a few years ago. It's not a linear event. It's a frequency change. For some, pioneers, it has already occurred. Our helix, the DNA helix, is moving from 2 to 12, and that's happened for some people already. Not many. To me, I think the most crucial part is this heart opening. How open is everybody's heart? And I'm not sure that if we even have 13 or 14 people on the planet as we speak, even that are fully open-hearted, and I think that's going to shift quite soon. But I would say someone like the Dalai Lama and Amaji probably have very open hearts, like totally open hearts. But there are not that many. But as soon as we get that critical mass, then of course everybody starts waking up very, very quickly.
Yeah. There's an old
saying. I
saying.
don't know how you feel about that.
Well, that feels very right, and it's when you're talking about the DNA strand. I've been actually doing this study recently on the significance of 12 in spirituality, and in typically with that 12, there's a 13th. In the case of the 12 disciples, and the 13th being Jesus. And to me, the 13th is the completed man, or the perfected being, that allowed themselves to have that Christed consciousness or Buddha consciousness flow through them. And so, that's to me is the DNA strand change, the 2 to 12, and it's significant throughout anything that has to do with spirituality, and even in science. So I mean, I think that's what these beings did, like the Dalai Lama or Saint Francis of Assisi. These ones that have story after story of, you could see the light around them. You could see the light around most, but they would brighten up a room. And so I mean, those are the ones that we know.
I've been with the Dalai Lama and Amaji, and as someone I've had quite a lot of open-heartedness since I was a child. I could feel their energy immediately, and I've met many other gurus and avatars, but with them it was just instantaneous. And I know there's been a lot of bad press around Satya Sai Baba, but I felt the same energy there as well, the cosmic Christ energy.
You can feel it. Yeah.
But this energy is not just to do with an individual. This is a mass tidal wave of energy now that Earth has got happening for Mother Earth, and in a way we've become like fleas, on Mother Earth. And so whether we come along or not, she's moving into this new dimension and purging. And so hopefully, we are moving with her. And it's a choice for each individual, and each individual has to take the responsibility now of, are we ready to make a full-time commitment to say, I am 100% committed in the now moment, from now to now, to cooperation, coming away from competition, to unity consciousness, and the new paradigm, or not.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about that with my friend Virginia this morning. We were talking about how there was a time when we would trade services. The carpenter would build your house, and for life, you maybe gave them the lumber, or the tailor gave them their shoe. The cobbler gave them their shoes, or the healer came to your house because they built your house, or they supplied you with meat or whatever. And it was a community that worked with each other. And now, the invention of a monetary system made us make, gold and money more significant than the people that were creating the community. And it separates us. And, not that I'm saying, we can be in flow with that, but we've made it so significant that we can't even, we work our butts off, and then we don't spend any time with our loved ones or connect with them. So it's and I know it's possible
and I think that's changing now. That's changing, because people are literally now feeling, I don't know about in the States, but here, people just, they're losing interest in everything, They're not feeling motivated to go to their jobs or whatever, because the whole system is crumbling, and ultimately the nature of reality isn't outside of ourselves. The whole of the outside world is a hologram. It is, as Buddha said, ultimately an illusion. But once we realize that, we can enjoy it, and we can co-create consciously. And that's the glyph in the Mayan calendar that we're coming to. This 13 number is so important, and that's what the whole Mayan calendar is based on. And there are many Mayan calendars. So the work of Dr. Carl Kalaman is very important for people to look at his work on YouTube if they're more interested in this. He's done massive research. So this current glyph that we're just coming out of the glyph in the Mayan calendar, which is this particular Mayan calendar is about consciousness. It's not about time as such. And we're coming out of the integrity glyph into this energy of conscious co-creation. So how exciting is that, you know? What do we choose to individually and collectively consciously co-create?
Yeah. And if we work in with our hearts, in open hearts, we're gonna create compassion, in love and flow amongst each other. Very, very cool.
Absolutely. And when you speak now, Jeremy, you know you're not just using words, but one can feel the energy of this love and this commitment to others as aspects of yourself. Isn't that how you see the world? That others are nothing but an aspect of that same consciousness that is you.
Absolutely. Because I know when I help somebody, I'm helping myself, but I'm helping them, and I'm helping the whole. And I've known that for a long time. If I'm speaking in front of 100 people, I'm actually speaking to just one. And you know, it may be 100 personalities, but you can feel the energy and feel the healing energy amongst them, and you can just feel it shift. And you know when one person shifts, the entire planet just shifted. And that's what's so significant. And it's really a great thing. And I've been seeing that over and over again in people, especially when I was on tour. I mean, and I know you can relate to this, because when you're traveling and you're literally just out there and you're not sure if you're going to get to some place on time, you're not sure that this is going to happen, but you just have to trust. And that's a shift in us too. Because, you know, when we first left, and I know you've even gone through this somewhat when you were traveling, you know, there's a lot of trust that comes with not having a home and just traveling.
Well, I had 4 years of not having a home and just living in the hotel in America and all over the world, you know. And even now, I'm actually just renting a little place in London for about 6-7 months, and I know that I'm being rested up and asked to hold this stillness energy for the planet and for Earth. But ultimately, whatever each of us is doing is, you know, we can only really work on our own journey. And within that, you know, as we do that deep work, as you say, everybody and everything gets shifted. And one of the sad things I'm noticing on the internet is that there's a lot of these so-called big, you know, teachers that have made it quite big on the internet, you know, spiritual people. But the energy is not right somehow, because people are still giving their power away because people don't want to take responsibility for their own lives.
Yeah.
So by having some sort of great spiritual teacher out there to, make into a big, put on a big pedestal, they are able to get away from responsibility for their own lives and just blindly follow what somebody else is saying, you know. And I'm not saying one shouldn't have teachers or whatever. The time is really coming now for each of us to wake up to our own energy, our own self-empowerment. And yes, within that we can, help each other, guide each other, and have temporary teachers, that might get us from point A to B.
Well, absolutely. And even in the moment, I mean, when you and I had dinner, I mean, you were my teacher for, an hour or 2 hours, because I learned something. And I learned something about myself. And so, I mean, and I think that if people would just let go and realize that every single one of us can be a teacher in a moment, but we're also our own savior.
Yes.
And people are looking for a savior or a guru. And I found it very interesting because I found a definition of guru. It means one who's transfigured themselves from darkness into light.
That's right.
And I'm like, well, if that's the truth, then each one of us needs to be transfiguring ourselves from darkness or light, or be set on that path to enlighten oneself. So
exactly, and also the guru means The Guru is within us, and a true teacher will connect you to your own self-empowerment. A true teacher will not take power away from you, you know. And that's really, really important for people to understand now. Of course, we all have to start somewhere, and using books or having teachers, but this blind giving away the power, that isn't going to serve anybody or get anybody anywhere or get anybody ascended or enlightened or any of the rest of it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen, you know.
And, it's definitely interesting to watch, and I think that I've seen people spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on gurus, and I'm like, if you just get into yourself and open your heart up and understand yourself, and of course, we need guides sometimes because we might not know how to do that. But they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on this person, and they're not getting any better. They're not like,
yeah.
And it's because they don't want to, or they're scared to. I think the soul wants. I know the soul wants them to, but their ego's scared to.
So how do you feel, Jeremy, that the mass population across the globe? Let's just take America. Don't you feel that people are just? Do you feel a shift happening in just normal day-to-day living, or how is that suddenly going to shift? Do you feel into what we are sharing as family of light and healing and whatever on say Facebook, where we have 5,000-10,000 friends that are all major people, healers, and people that are very dedicated to this whole Mayan thing and so on.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's a good question, because I went on tour and came back, and then I took a contract job, just to pick up some money, and I've done 2 contract positions, and of course I have to go from being in meditation every day and doing mainly just being with spiritual people. Now I'm actually in corporate America, and I found that because my energy was in such a great space and in balance and peace, that that was very contagious to people, and people were asking lots and lots of questions. So I'm like, wow, I've shifted obviously, but these people are shifting as well. They're starting to ask questions, and that's a big step for people, because
that's why you were put there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to tell you, that was one of my ego things when I first came back. I was like, I don't want to go, but I said no. I said, God, wherever you want me to be, I'm going to be. And so I went, and yes, definitely, that's exactly why I was put there. And to answer your question, yes, I do think people are shifting. People are realizing what's important. They're not just in the pursuit of money. They're looking to be with their families more and enjoying the company of their family and their loved ones. And so, yeah, I definitely do see a big shift.
So there's a simplification happening.
Yes.
Because that's just so crucial now, is making this time to be still, to be silent, to be simple, to be grateful for what we do have and focus on what we do have so that it can become more. And the energy now is just so high on the planet that whatever we focus on is going to happen almost immediately. And that's going to start happening for everybody. Everybody's going to wake up to all kinds of spiritual powers, not just a few people.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if we've done work for, like, say, 20 years or 20 lifetimes, somebody else is just going to get it boom, because the energy is just so high now. And collectively, it's the time. So we have to be really, really careful of what we're thinking. And at least, say, well, I intend that even if I'm having negative thoughts, that, they don't manifest immediately.
Absolutely. Now, what do you...
I'm working on myself.
Absolutely. Well, now, you'd mentioned, what are some techniques that you give, or that you do for yourself to help balance your, I guess, doubts or your intentions? Some techniques that can maybe help people be peaceful in this time, where they're shifting a lot. People are getting sick, and I actually know a few people that are getting really ill. So what are some things that
people will start exiting as well, actually.
Oh, yeah.
People that don't want to change, and some of them will choose to die rather than change.
Yeah.
And we know that death is not death, but that's a whole subject, I mean, thanks to the internet, we can just get into anything. The Tibetan Book of the Living and Die. Reading the Divine Mother Speaks, the Healing of the Human Heart, which decodes all of mystery school and puts energy in very simple form for everybody to get very quickly. Or listening to all sorts of teachers out there on YouTube. So it's not difficult if we decide that we want to shift. But we're not going to be able to do it by continuing in the rat race, So yes, the mortgage, et cetera, that becomes an excuse, I think, If people say we don't have the time, the money, or we don't know where to go, that's an excuse because, we just have to just surrender and say, whatever it is, God, the angels or the energy within me, help me right now. I'm lost, I'm helpless, and can I have some help? And then all the help is there, It's just all on the internet now, whether it's Zen Buddhism or whatever. You can access all the information, and the simplest and most powerful way is to learn some form of meditation.
Yeah, that's you bring up some good points there because meditation has always been a strong thing for me, and I think for a lot of people. But I've been doing. I found that when I start to get not still or not in balance, I start reading, or of course I meditate or I journal, and I'll pick up your book, or I've been reading my book. I'll pick it up and read it because the coolest thing is when I read my own book, I'm like, did I write that?
we go because we're channeling our books, and also our books are kind of multidimensional. So each time somebody asks a question or in a certain space, you get a different energy or a different slant. Because both of us, even when we speak, the energy is coming through for anybody who's open-hearted, These are not just words being sprouted out.
That's feelings.
And as I said on Facebook, I do find certain individuals, this is not judgment, it's just discrimination, where, what they're saying is incredible, but somehow the energy is not that of the words, even though they're saying, you must embody what you teach and so on and so forth. But you just don't get that energy off them, It's just too clever and all words.
Yeah, you don't get the feeling.
You don't get that feeling of love and compassion and that feeling of, that there are many ways to the mountaintop, which is just so important to remember now. That even if we disagree with each other, because we're very often saying the same thing, but in very different ways, so the other person just gets on their high horse and says, oh, that's not my way, or I don't believe in Jesus, or I don't believe in Buddha, or I don't believe in Reiki, or whatever it is. And they're not going into the feeling, the essence of the energy may be exactly the same.
Absolutely.
They understand,
I think,
or live.
Absolutely. One of the biggest lessons I got a long time ago was when somebody was telling me about Hermetics, and they were talking about the book of Hermes, and they said that book will not open up, and in other words, you can't learn it from a human teacher. It'll only open up when the heart opens up. And I'm like, and then the same thing in the Christian Bible, it says this is the living word. So you can read it, but you're not gonna understand it until it's not gonna be decoded until you open up your heart. And so it's very much a different thing. And I actually when I was in Owensboro, Kentucky, I went and taught a workshop, and one of the girls that was in the workshop asked me to come to her church service the next morning. And I'm pretty open-minded about this. I was like, well, this man could teach me something. And the first things out of his mouth were, the Bible is meant to be taken seriously, but not literally. And so I'm like, well, if that's not the truth, I don't know what is. And then he starts to say you have to open your heart up in order for it to be open up.
And Jesus spoke so much in symbols and metaphors and in a way that people could understand, and then of course there was also the interpretation of what he said, because some of that has been distorted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Chinese whisper syndrome happens, that what the prophet said and what was, the interpretation of what was said can be different. But ultimately, it's not language, because language is only a tiny part of the way we communicate with each other. It's just such a small part of it.
Yeah.
It's the energy, and we have to feel that energy. It's like the first time I came on the show with you, we felt the energy.
Absolutely.
And the energy was in sync because it was heart and heart energy.
Yep. And I remember that because you'd just flown from Hawaii. The poor thing, I felt bad for you. No, but yeah, we were definitely in sync that day. And I felt you from that point on. So.
Yeah, and like when I did I got filming, some of the people I was interviewing are very, very famous, behind the camera. But with some, you got really powerful love energy coming through.
Yeah.
And they may not have exactly been the most famous of those famous, And the others, some of them are, world famous specialists in their field.
Yeah.
But in the room, I did not get that energy of love.
I think that comes down to the first thing you said to me. One of the first things you said to me on the show is you said, Jeremy, sometimes the taxi cab driver is the greatest teacher. Exactly.
And I do feel still, this is a great joke, that, a lot of the people that are going to ascend the fastest are just going to be simple people.
Yeah.
Just people that are fishermen or taxi drivers, or, might be even a politician that has a good heart and has done their best to serve humanity and seen the wonders of things. And some of the new age people will be left behind because they've become too egotistical and they just feel their way or the highway, you know.
I agree with you. Well, I tell you what.
That's not spiritual.
One of the contract positions I did was one of the simplest jobs I've ever done in my life. I mean, it was so simple. I've never done something so easy. My jobs that I did before were high up jobs working with executives. I was an executive at one point here. But I'll tell you what, I felt more energy in my body. I had an experience working, and I've had it many times before, but I never would have thought I would have gotten it working like this, where I was interconnected to all things, and I could feel myself breathing through everything, the trees, all the animals, all the people. And that's it's because I had no other distractions. I just had what I was doing, and that was pretty significant. So
and I think I'm going through a similar thing now in London, where suddenly, from being sort of living in the hotels and traveling all over the globe and being ambassadress of raising of consciousness and writing the books and, being interviewed on TV and radio and doing all the workshops and all that, and then coming to London and suddenly just having to be, just to be, and to come to zero and to be nothing. And that's what we're hitting. We're hitting 0 point. Now, I could freak out about this and say, I sold roofs over my head and, nothing has come out of this. None of it matters.
Yeah.
What matters is I was on a journey. It was an incredible journey. And now my higher self, my soul, ascended masters, angelics, call it what you like, wish for me to be still, to be simple, to hold energy, to be humble, to be nothing, and to let go of the outcome of what is going to happen with those films and those spiritual books and et cetera, including part of the job was to be in America and help raise consciousness for America. And Spirit is going, well, now it's time to let that go for a while. Yeah. It's like when you're cooking something, you've got to put it on the back burner and let it cook. And you've got to trust that it will cook, and maybe it will and maybe it will burn. But, it's time to come to humility sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think we're going through similar things where I just, I traveled. I didn't travel nearly as long as you did. But by the end of that journey, I was tired. It was
a powerful journey. Very powerful journey.
And then of course, not only the spiritual journey, but then the driving. The only one, because Justin doesn't drive, so it was just me driving across country. Yeah. That can get to be a lot on a person's body. So.
Justin's like me. I don't drive either, but Justin's a wonderful man.
Yeah, he was fun.
This 0 point thing is quite important. So this, we are all coming to nothingness now. Many, many things are falling away. And we should embrace that and be celebrating that. I mean, it isn't easy. Yes, there are times we want to kick and scream and it just feels awful, but at the same time, the ecstasy and the joy of lightening up, this moment I have now where I can just relax. Yes, I'm doing a few radio shows still. I've got a few more happening. And life will continue and things will happen and books will be written if they're meant to be written, etc., etc. But none of us have to take ourselves too seriously because there is an energy that is collective energy that is in charge here. And I'm really working right now on my own inner enlightenment process, because we always have to reach a new place of enlightenment within ourselves.
Yeah.
Even the Buddha and Jesus, I've channeled the book on the Buddha recently. They're reaching other places within themselves and in the cosmos, and the unmanifest and the manifest. The journey will always continue. It will continue beyond fifth dimension as well.
Yeah.
So, that's what I'm working on. I'm really working on Nisargadatta Maharaj's teachings from his book, I Am That, which is about absolute reality. And in absolute reality, we have to disidentify from everything. So it's very, very powerful and not for everybody sort of thing, but it's in my book, The Buddha Speaks, which is the practice of 1880. I am neither this nor that. So we can only come to the highest truth through a negation of what is not true. But this is very, very high esoteric understanding, and it's not everybody's path. And if just a few of us reach that space of nothingness, then within that everything can happen, including heaven on earth.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's exciting. It does, and it's exciting. It's exciting times. So at 0 point, that to me is our center, our core. And I know that some of I saw Greg Braden actually do a lecture on that online once, and that was that's where it hit me.
He's in our film.
Yeah, I saw the picture of you online, the two of you. That was just pretty cool.
So don't be afraid, I would say to the listeners, of being nothing, of things falling away, because if the chalice is not empty, it cannot be filled. And what we already have, we're all fed up with it, more or less. We might think that we want to keep clinging to this, that, or the other. The truth is we're thoroughly fed up with stuff. And if we weren't, it wouldn't start falling away, would it, really?
Yeah. And while you're bringing that up, I just want to add this on to the listeners. Yeah. Guys, while you're out there, we're talking about pretty deep subjects, but these areas we're talking about are within you. And I know that Rashmi will agree with me. And then so we're also talking about famous people. Those famous people are going through the same journey that you're going through. And so while you're, I've interviewed famous people on this show, and so what I'm telling you is that talking to them on a personal level, they're going through the same journey as we're going through. They may have a little bit ahead in some areas, but your wisdom is probably you might have wisdom that they don't have. So just continue getting into yourself and understanding yourself, and they can be your guide. But
that's beautiful, because the truth is that we are all one. Nobody is higher or less than anybody else.
Yeah.
And Jesus said that, Buddha said that, Krishna said that. We are all one energy, and we are all Buddhas and Jesus in the making. The Christ consciousness and energy is within everybody, and it's time for it to come to light.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so we got a few more minutes here. We're talking about it quite a bit here, but I want to make sure we wrap up. And is there any last things that we want to talk about just before we end the show?
I hope that we didn't go too deep for the audience, but I feel that whoever's listening to this is meant to hear something that would maybe trigger something on their soul journey now.
Yeah.
Because this is a very important time on earth for everybody, and we're all in this together. We're all sailing in the same boat. And as Ramdas beautifully says, we're all here to take each other home.
Yes.
And home is to that unity consciousness, that oneness. So our books, The Divine Mother Speaks, The Healing of the Human Heart, Buddha Speaks to the Buddha Nature Within, and Shiva Speaks, Conversations with the Christ Yogi, Babaji, which will come out in March 2012, and of course Jeremy's wonderful book, Peace Be Still, are all wonderful tools. And then, at a certain point, you have to get beyond the books as well. I shouldn't be saying this, but it's true, is it not?
It is. It is true.
Into that silence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the books are a tool, but then you have to realize that you are your book. You are, and that connection to the cosmic consciousness is your book. So.
And at a certain point, you read something, but then you also make space to just be and be silent, so you can digest that information and come beyond even words into that energy of love, which ultimately is way beyond everything, isn't it? It's just, it just is who we are.
Most definitely.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
No, definitely. And so, Rashmi, how do they find your books? I know probably on Amazon.
Yes, Amazon and Kindle and BarnesandNoble.com, Waterstones.com. Just the internet, and my website is www.rashmikilnani.com. RashmiKilnani.com. And you can subscribe to me on Facebook and also like my author Rashmi Kilnani page for further updates on my books. And I send a lot of healing energy, and I share a lot of the wisdom of many, many streams of spirituality, because having taught Reiki Masters, the different streams, it is non-denominational, so it is something for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, Rashmi, it is always a pleasure having you on the show, and thank you so much for staying up late in London and speaking with us for here on Soul Talk. And definitely we'll have you back on the show again, and we'll talk again. And maybe one time we'll get you down to Tampa, Florida. And
fantastic, Jeremy. I wish you a wonderful 2012. And a lot of good energy for tomorrow and the meditations and so on. And hopefully see you in London one of these days. Many blessings, and thank you for your wonderful service with your radio show and everything else that you do.
Thank you.
God bless, and God bless America.
Thank you. Again, thank you guys for listening. That was Rashmi Kilnani on the line on Soul Talk. This is her third time on the show, and definitely become a very good friend over the past year and a half that I've known her. Again, she gave it to you, but her website is www.rashmikilnani.com. Again, that's www.R-A, S as in Sam, H as in Henry, M-I as in Igloo, K-H-I-L, N as in Nancy, A-N as in Nancy, I.com. And I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Definitely enjoyed creating the show for you, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.